Today we are looking at 3 fantastic reasons why Reaktor sounds so good. We've got a superb drum machine, a next level sample slicer and multi-effect unit, and the most gorgeous granular pad synth. But before we get into it, make sure you stick around to the end of the video where I'll be showing you how to get your hands on a free sample pack and sound bank that I put together especially for this video. Let's dive in. Let's kick things off in style with CLONETONIC. You can see the name here at the bottom. And CLONETONIC is a drum and percussion synth. Doesn't use any samples at all. All of the sounds are generated within the synth using 2 sound sources. You've got an oscillator and a noise generator. Comes with 6 different independent voices, and you access them using each of the 6 tabs here. And they're all identical, so everything you see here is replicated across each of the voices. So to give you an idea of what the synth can do, what it sounds like, we're going to run through a couple of the kits that came with the synth. So there you go, that should give you a flavor of the kind of palette that you can work with. You can use it to emulate old drum machines, or as you've seen there, you can use it to totally create something new, futuristic and unconventional. It's entirely up to you because it can do both. So let's take a look at the GUI so that you can see what does what each section is responsible for. Starting off with the oscillator. Top left here, you have 4 different waveforms that you can work with: sine wave, triangle, saw, and a partial oscillator which has 10 partials, and you can edit them here just by clicking and moving just like that. So very easy. Below that we've got a frequency slider, and let's switch to the bass drum just for this, and you slide to the right and it increases the pitch of the drum, as you can see, and then turn it down and it goes down. And below that we have the modulation options, which is this section here, and it's worth noting that the modulation only works with the oscillator. It doesn't affect the noise generator at all, so anything that you do with this section won't affect anything on the right hand side. So starting here, we've got the LFO rate that will increase and decrease the speed of the modulation. Then we've got the amount and the fine tuning. And below we can see we've got 4 different sources that we can use, and they are the envelope, the frequency modulation, the noise, and a combination of FM and envelope. And here you've got the attack and the decay for the modulation. Let's just have a quick play with these just to show the difference that it can make in terms of using the different parameters. So as it is, we've got that sound being modulated by the noise. That's the envelope, that's the FM, and that's the combination. Let's play with the attack. And the decay. So that's having quite a profound effect on the sound that's being generated by the oscillator. Moving over here to the right, we've got an attack and decay envelope. Let's turn the attack up. So that sounds totally different just by changing that. And that brings us to the noise generator. That is governed by the filter here. And as you would expect from a filter, you've got the frequency and the resonance. And there's 4 different types of filter: low pass, band, high pass, and a nice comb filter here. The comb filter has 4 different options here, and these only work with the comb filter. The 3 other filters are not affected by any of these controls here. And between the oscillator and the noise, you have a crossfader. So this allows you to blend the 2 sound sources together. So when it's in the middle, that will be 50% oscillator, 50% noise. Hard left, only the oscillator. Hard right, only the noise. So let's leave it on the noise 100% for now, because we're going to work with this option here, which is the clap rate. And probably easier if I just demonstrate exactly what it does. So it's turned off at the moment. Let's turn it on and turn the rate up. And what I'm going to do is just press the key and leave the key pressed. I'm not pressing it multiple times. So there you go, that's exactly what the clap rate does. Again, in the middle, just below the crossfader, we've got an oscilloscope, and you will have seen it moving as I'm triggering sounds, and you can turn that on and off. Won't affect the sound, but might save a bit of CPU. So when you're done configuring the sound, it will then move out and go into the distortion. And there's 3 distortion options. We've currently got the sine on. Let's turn it off. So that's quite a bit quieter without. And we've also got the distortion type 2. So a bit of difference there. And for each of the 2, you've got the parameters there below that you can tweak to your heart's desire. And here you get to set the overall level of the drive. And once you're finished distorting, the sound will go into an EQ, which is, as you would expect from an EQ, pretty self-explanatory. You've got the frequency, the bandwidth, and the boost or the cut. And then finally, the sound will go into your limiter or hard clip. Let's click there and it switches on. And below, we've got the tabs, as we saw a bit earlier. And for each tab, you have a volume control and a pan and a mute option. So it's exactly the same for each one, and it's color coded: green to green, blue to blue. That's CLONETONIC in a nutshell. You've now got an idea of how it functions and how it sounds. What I'd like to do now is just put a quick kit together from scratch, just something very small, a kick, snare and a hi-hat, so that you can see exactly how to create something from scratch. Let's kick things off quite literally. We're going to work with a kick, and we're going to put that in part A. And yep, you can see this here. That's going to pop up from time to time. That appears when you don't have any distortion on part A. So let's work with a sine wave, and this is what all of the 6 voices sound like to begin with. So yeah, we're going to be working with the oscillator only because I don't want any noise. Let's bring that across. So we got rid of the noise straight away and turn down the bass frequency and turn that up again. And already there's a half decent kick, so it doesn't take long to get something workable, at least for a kick drum. And let's work with the envelope modulation. Let's turn up the amount there. Let's go for some distortion. It's quite clean as it sounds. Let's try this one. And turn it down a little. And let's add a touch of EQ, so we'll turn the frequency down and a bit of a boost. Yeah, I think that's just a little bit too much still. There we go. So there we go. We already have a pretty good kick in just a couple of tweaks. Let's start with a snare, and to do that I'm going to work with part B. This should be a bit more of a challenge. As you saw, the kick is quite simple. With a snare, I think we need to work with both oscillators so that the noise is going to add a bit of crisp crunch to it. So let's go something like that. That should work. And let's work with the oscillator first. Let's triangle, see what that sounds like. Yeah, let's leave that as it is for now, and let's start working with the noise. So this is the oscillator on its own. And yep, there you go. Already sounding better with some noise added. And that's the high pass, so let's, yeah. Oh, there we go. We're dialing that in now. That's quite nice. Yeah, nice crisp snap to it. Yeah, that sounds good. And we don't want any clapping. So yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, I like that. So we got 2 of the 3. Let's now work in part C to put the hi-hat together. With a hi-hat, I found that it's best to just work with the noise, so we'll put that hard right. Okay, let's see if we can make that resemble a hi-hat. Let's work with each filter. Let's start with the low pass, see how that sounds. That's already sounding quite good. Let's turn the decay down a bit. Make it a bit quicker and sharper. Yeah, that sounds quite good. Yeah, there we go. Don't need any distortion there. And let's add a bit of EQ, turn the frequency up. Bandwidth down and boost it a little. And there we go. I think that sounds quite nice. Not too bad at all. We got the kick, snare, and a hi-hat. Let's just run it through a simple pattern that I'll create here, and that will give you a good idea of exactly how it sounds in context. That should give you a pretty solid idea of what CLONETONIC can do and how you can use it. In putting the video together, I created 10 kits, and if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll show you how you can download them all, and I've also created sample packs for all 10 kits. You can grab them too. But for now, let's take a look at something completely different. Next up, we have Sensei, which is an audio sample slicer and multi-effects unit. Comes with 12 different effects. We're going to get into each one of them a bit deeper shortly. You can use it to slice, dice, filter and destroy your audio. It's definitely capable of creating all kinds of chaos, reordering things and applying one or more of the 12 effects to any slice at any given time. Let's deal with the elephant in the room, and that is the size of this plugin. It's very big and it can't be resized, and you'll be doing a fair amount of scrolling up and down. And it looks a bit intimidating, but when you understand that each one of these sequences is for triggering each one of the effects, it becomes pretty self-explanatory. Look to the left here and you can see each of the sequences has its own length. And you alter that by clicking and moving up and down. Double click takes you back to the default. And the rate is the speed at which the playhead is going to move through each sequencer. So again, double click and that'll take it back to the default. So let's start by taking a look at the central window here. This is basically a visual representation of the audio that's being triggered. So whatever loop you're working with, it will be displayed here. When you press play, the playhead moves from left to right sequentially, and you have 16 different slices. each of which can have, like I say, a different effect or multiple effects applied to it at any given point in time. And using the slice sequencer below, you can just change the order in which the slices are being triggered and played. Just moving to the top here, you've got 3 different sections, and for the reverse, stutter and pattern effects, you have different patterns that you can avail yourself of quite nicely. Just click and drag up and down there, and that is the effect that will be triggered when you use it in the sequencer. So yeah, whenever you're using one of those 3 effects, just come up to the top here and you can change that accordingly. So let's scroll down a bit so we can see the slice sequencer a bit easier. The playhead will move from left to right as it does with everything else, and when it encounters one of these blocks that you draw in, it will move to that particular slice. So there's 16 cells that you can use here. So when the playhead hits this block, it's going to trigger slice number 4, number 8, and number 16. So let's just set them up so you can see that in action. But before we do, you can actually set the retrigger rate as well. So let's set some of them lower and some of them higher so you can see what's going on. And let's just trigger that and see what it sounds like. So even just using these 2 effects, it's already having quite a profound effect on the audio. And what you'll notice is each effect has its own color. You'll see that as we go through it. And as each effect is triggered, the color will display where it's being applied to each respective slice. So let's turn these off for now because I don't want things to get too messy. Just want to focus quickly on each of the effects. Scroll down. And we've got a reverse sequencer, and what you'll notice is the sequencer windows, there's 2 types of control. So for the reverse and the scratch, you'll see that you just click on and off, so it's binary, so it's either switched on or it's switched off. And others you click and drag, and that will affect the intensity or the subtype of effect being triggered. Let's set some of these to trigger off in reverse. And there we go. There we go, nice and simple. You've got a tape stop effect, which is called scratch, and let's just draw that in. There we go, nice tape stop. Below that we've got the 2 juggle sequences. This one is binary, so it's either on or off. And below that you can set the type of juggling that's going on. So 8 different types of juggling there, and this is what it sounds like. So good for messing things up. Show some better examples of that with some presets I have shortly. Then we have the speed sequencer, and this is a way that you can slow the audio down to half time. We've got the pitch sequencer below, where you can increase the pitch and decrease the pitch of each slice being triggered. Just move this down a bit now. And below that we come to the gate sequencer, and I referred to that a bit earlier. You've got the actual sequence that will be triggered here. Let's try a different pattern. Let's just go for number 2 and set something in motion. So that gives you a quick idea. You get a nice gated sequence there. Next up is distortion. I would like to see more control here, but essentially you just have a binary, so it's either distorted or it's not for that section that you are affecting. So quite a nasty distortion there, but certainly a handy effect. And below that we got a low pass and a high pass sequencer. Great for creating filter sweeps. Let's just set a couple of them up now. Just like that. Nice and easy. Just drag it and move it like that, and let's trigger them off now. There you go, nice filter sweeps there. Let's just turn them off. Next up, we've got some bit crushing and bit rate reducing. Let's just set these up so that you can hear each one working accordingly. So you get to add some nice crunchy bit rate artifacts and distortion there. Lovely, always good to add a bit of bit rate reduction and crunchiness to the audio. Next up, bit of a mystery for me, it's the MBF sequencer. Not entirely sure what it does, but it certainly sounds good. Like I say, not sure what that is, but I do like it. Lovely, and it's great when you combine it with some of the other effects, as you'll see a bit later when I show you, when we showcase some of the presets that we've got. Next we've got a delay. I don't use this too much because it can make things a bit busy. As you can see, if you've got too much of that going on, it's in combination with some of the others, it's going to get a bit noisy, a bit quick. Let's just move this up here so that we can access. You have 8 different options, 8 different types of granularity here. Just trigger them now, see how they sound. Each one sounds a bit different. That's all 12 of the effects, but the magic with Sensei comes when you start to combine them. That's when you really bring your loops to life. So I think the best thing at this stage, just going to run through some of the presets that I've created just to showcase what Sensei can do. If you'd like me to make these presets available, let me know in the comments below and I'll stick a link in the description. But for now, let's just get into it and see what Sensei can do with these presets. So Sensei's really great for chopping things up, adding effects and really messing them up. Sounds really great on this drum beat here, but it also works with other kinds of loops, and we're going to use a 303 loop now just to show that it's effective in that kind of sound as well. Let's get straight into that. I've created a nice 303 loop using D16's rather excellent faux scion synth, and this is what it sounds like on its own. And I'm going to add a little bit of reverb, and we're going to use CLONETONIC to use in the beat, and this is what it sounds like without any kind of Sensei. Got a couple of presets just to showcase how Sensei can be used for music loops as well as rhythms, and this is what they sound like. That is Sensei in a nutshell. Fantastic piece of software for slicing, dicing and destroying. Let's move on to something completely different. Let's end today's video with some blissed out ambience and some pads. This is System Flow. It's a dual engine granular sampler and a lush reverb unit, and it's got some great randomization functions. You won't find it in the Reaktor library. It's quite obscure and buried in a dark corner of the internet. It is available exclusively from these guys at Synthesizer Studio Berlin. They have very generously made it available for free, and the link is in the description. So there is a lot going on here. It's quite a large GUI. Not going to do a deep dive. That's going to take far too long, but in a nutshell, you have a granular sampler on the left, and that's duplicated on the right. You've got lots of modulation options, LFOs and filters. And once you're done with that, the audio will route out to this rather lovely reverb unit. And for both the reverb and the grain samplers, you've got this nice randomizer. You set the amount that you want to randomize, and then you click the dice and just see what happens. And that's duplicated down here with the reverb, so you can create all kinds of reverbs on the fly. So I think that's enough talking. Let's get into it and see what System Flow sounds like. That is System Flow, quite a beautiful sounding synth, I think you'll agree, and quite a nice way to end today's video. Earlier on I did mention that the drum kits and the samples from CLONETONIC would be available online. Everything is available on my shop. Link is in the description. Here's the CLONETONIC kits and samples, just click on there. And it's a nice, quick and easy free download for you. And I think that brings us to the end of today's video. Why not leave a comment on the ensembles we've run through today, what you like about them, what other ensembles you think I should cover, and give us a like and give us a subscribe. That's always appreciated. But for now, watch one of these videos that YouTube is recommending, and I'll see you in the next one.